You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
What a beautiful day for horses in the morning.
You are listening to the #1 horse podcast in the world. Here is your entertaining look at the horse world and the people in it.
I am Helena Harris, formerly known as Helena B. from Aiken, South Carolina.
And I'm Coach Jen. I'm from Ocala, Florida. And you are listening to Horses in the Morning on the Horse Radio Network for August 1st, episode 3488. And today's episode is brought you by the very generous folks at Grazer's Nutri-Treats from Equine Balanced Support.
What is your favorite day of the week?
Welcome back, Helena.
Well, thank you very much. It's always an honor to be here on Horses in the Morning, especially with you.
Mary's not here today, everybody. As you may have noticed, she is in Texas at a horse show. And I got a text from her last night that she arrived at the horse show. It was 100 plus degrees and the air conditioning in her living quarters quit.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
I told her
You know,
she needs to put up a hammock in Remy's stall.
I was like, what are we going to do if we lose power? We need a generator. We need solar powered fans. We need off the grid power.
You do. And actually, ding, 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 we have some experience with that now because over 2 acres doesn't have any power of any kind or water or anything else. We bought a solar generator, which is nothing more than a fancy giant power bank of batteries. That's really all it is. But to charge it, you can plug it into its solar panels, or you can charge it by plugging it into an outlet in your house, or you can charge it by plugging it into a gas power generator. But it stores up the energy for you. And we can run 2 huge fans. I sent you a picture of the giant fan we have in the barn. It's, I think, a 36-inch fan.
Yeah.
It can run it for a good 10 hours straight.
Holy cow.
That's without charging it on extra. And we also run power tools off of it and this and that and other thing. So if you would like to have backup power, that's not necessarily going to run your house like your air conditioner or your refrigerator, but essentials like a fan or a tiny refrigerator, something like that.
Yeah.
Check into and do a little research on solar generators. The
Did
one
you
we
just
have
tell
is
me to do research.
The one we have is a Jackery brand, but there are lots out there. I can't say whether or not ours is better than anybody else's, but there are lots out there. And if we use the solar panels and we put them outside, as long as we're getting a sunshiny day, we can run the fan all day long and the battery stays right where it's at. It doesn't go down at all.
This is good advice. I'm taking notes. There's a lot more sunshine down here in the south than there is up in the north.
Yeah, it's very intense here. Now, the caveat to that is if you want to be able to run a water pump like your well.
Yeah.
You probably won't find a solar powered generator that will do that because the initial startup of that motor. We have an old fashioned gas powered generator. It's not old, but it's an old fashioned one that will do that for us. So if we are going to be out of power for a week because of a hurricane or some bizarre thing, it has enough power that we can start it up, run the water long enough to fill up troughs and devices, and then we can turn it off and then wheel it to someplace else. And it really wasn't very much money. We paid a couple of grand for it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, worthy investment.
Yeah. Well, compared to what they call the whole house generator, that's bonkers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bonkers. And, if you do a little research and ask a qualified electrician, you can use a portable generator run by either gasoline or diesel to run the different parts of your house separately. Like, for example, Glenn's brother, same size generator. What he does is he will run it and he runs his refrigerator X number of hours off that generator. And then he shuts it off and keeps the door closed so that the refrigerator stays cold enough that the food doesn't spoil, but he doesn't have it running all the time. He cycles it back and forth. Yeah.
I have so much to learn.
See, up north, it was all about keeping things from freezing, right?
Oh my gosh. I mean, we need it. I will never forget the winter of 1,000 snows. We had a couple of those, but I'll never forget 2013 when I was melting snow on our wood stove in the house so I could have water for the horses. And that lasted, we were out of power for I think 8 days in the winter.
Wow.
That
That's
was
a lot of snow.
I was never
to
so
melt.
stressed. Thank God we had the water, and thank God we knew about this thing called fire. If it was the reverse, and I had to run a well or something, So,
Wow.
but the thing about the weather up north is if you are going to lose power, it's typically because of a blizzard or even a hurricane. But we see it coming because there's a very different path of the weather that happens up north and down south. You don't have these storms that blossom randomly out of nowhere. There's far less
Right.
predictability, I find,
Right.
here, at least in South Carolina. And so you really never know when a storm cell is going to be strong enough to knock your power out. My
Right.
plan used to be, okay, I get these 2 large, clean plastic trash cans, and I would fill them with water, knowing that there was a big storm coming. We might lose power. That's not, you don't have that level of predictability here. So you could think, oh, everything is fine. You're looking at the radar, you're watching the weather. Maybe there's a potential for severe thunderstorms, maybe not. I don't,
You just never know.
I could go and fill those trash cans every time there's a possible storm. That's going to get old really fast. But so I don't know. I got to come up with a plan. I got to come up with a plan.
Well, the nice part there is if you use water troughs instead of the small automatic waterer. For example, in your big pasture, you have 3 horses. You use a water trough that if you were to not touch it, it would last them 2 full days filled up. That's an easy safety measure in that when you clean it out, yes, you're going to waste more water. But on the flip side, if you lose power on any given day because lightning struck the pole with the transformer on it, and it's going to take the next 48 hours till you get your power back, because those types of power outages tend to be much shorter because they're very localized.
Okay.
That's
This
a
is
good
to know.
measure.
See, I didn't know this.
Yeah, they tend to be very localized, and I hear in Florida at least, there's a transformer is that big thing that looks like a 55-gallon drum on the tops of telephone poles.
Yeah.
That isolates things. So if there's a lightning strike or somebody knocks a pole down, the distance that outage travels down the line is going to be shorter the more of those you have.
Okay. So there's fewer times when you have outages of 3, 4, 5 days.
Correct. It'll be a half a day or 2 days. Yeah. We hear that a lot here in Central Florida in that such and such neighborhood loses their power for half a day.
Okay.
That. So just the act of using a water trough that is regularly filled, that has 48 hours worth of water in it, that's just an easy, comfortable safety measure that you don't even have to think about. Versus a lot of folks use automatic waterers, and I understand why, because the horses drink a lot and there's always water in front of them. But the reservoir is really tiny.
I am not a fan of the automatic waterers, and most of my clients know that. I understand their convenience, I understand their benefits, but we have a 100-gallon tank in the big pasture, and you have to get creative about making sure it doesn't get slimy quickly, but it's pretty easy to do. But I'm like my side hustle, if I didn't have so many side hustles, my side hustle would be a professional water tank filler because it's nothing makes me feel, I can't stand a slimy water tank. And I think it's so unfair to horses to have to drink that. But
you'll get a kick out of this. We're not going to get to any of our content. We're going to be talking all about R plus and R minus and P plus and P minus today. So we're going to get to that. But I have to hose off Nigel pretty regularly because of the anhydrosis problem.
Yeah.
And the wash area at the boarding stable we were at for a little over a year has mats on it. And of course, you know how it is with mats. They get lumpy, bumpy, and curvy. 100% of the time, I'll go out there and I'll start hosing him off. And there's little puddles. And he goes over and he drinks the puddles of water that just ran off his disgusting, dirty body. Yeah. Anyhow, 100% he'll go and take a sip out of that. Sometimes he drinks the whole puddle. It's warm. It's full of slime from his body.
He's kind of strange, your horse.
He's weird.
Yeah,
He's not
I
just
gotta
strange,
say,
he's
weird. Yeah,
He's
that's
weird.
That's.
But
You know what?
anyhow.
I'm going to save that, and I'll ask that in my class. I'll ask if anyone's ever heard of that kind of behavior.
He loves puddles in general. Scooter likes puddles too, but if Nigel comes across a random mud puddle,
Interesting. I mean, I've seen, especially ponies. I've seen plenty of ponies who are like, "Oh, what is this thing in the ground that looks wet? Let me eat it. Let me taste it." And sometimes let me roll in it.
that's the best part.
I mean, my cat Jack, our Maine Coon, our 17-year-old Maine Coon, he has very distinct drinking tastes. Like I have put water in every kind of vessel you can think of: whisker relief bowls, fountains, bubblers, you name it. This cat prefers to drink from water that lands on a rock, like in a puddle, or from the hood of my car, or lately from the water faucet, which we have now resorted to turning on when this cat wants to drink. So
does he do the paw thing and he drink it off his paw?
Oh yeah.
Drink it straight up. Yeah.
Oh yeah. You can't leave a water glass next to your bed because Jack will put his stinky paw in it.
Yeah. We had a Maine Coon once, and that's how she always drank. She would find a dripping faucet and stick her paw in there and lick it off, and stick her paw and lick it off. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so that's another thing I get to study.
There you go. Studying things. And speaking of studying things, to catch everybody up, if they're not friends with you on Facebook and don't follow you around appropriately online, you decided that at the tender age of 41, you're going to go back to school and get a master's in animal welfare and behavior science, which sounds like it's for big brains. But I'm a little unclear about what animal welfare. I kind of get what that is, but what the heck is behavior science?
Woo! You know, this is a really good question. And one of the first courses is, what is animal welfare science? So the study of animal welfare science is about using objective measurement tools to study the quality of life in, across species, in different animals, in individuals. It's basically saying, taking the subjectivity out of my horse is fine. How do we define the quality of life in a particular animal? And then how do we define that quality of life, again, in the broader sense, but then in a very specific sense, day to day, hour to hour, scenario to scenario? How do we measure what is okay? And we will use different tools and different metrics to measure those things. Some of the tools might be blood work. It might be just observations, notes. It might be brain imaging, right? Obviously, lots of behavior, body language that we're going to study in horses. But this is across all species. And then and it also has a lot to do with laboratory animals, farm animals, companion animals, shelter animals. How do we measure stress? And then a lot of the science is starting to already. It's a really, really new field. It's only several years old, even though it was kind of spearheaded by Temple Grandin way back in the 90s. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So it's starting to affect public policy in all areas. But of course, for those of us who have horses and companion animals, we spend a lot of money and we do a lot of wringing of the hands trying to make sure that our horses are comfortable. And then there's also this incredibly painful tide of misinformation about what's best for animals, and in our case, what's best for horses. And in our industry, most professionals operate on what we call, it's a social license to operate. I think your listeners have heard that term before. It simply means you don't have to pass a test to be a horse trainer or a horse professional. That your clients and your target market, they expect you to have a certain level of expertise and that there's this trusting relationship between you. But there really is no hard metric, but really no hard standard by which you can say, I am an expert in this area. Animal welfare science hopes to create a real life measurement.
One of the pages I follow on Facebook is one of our local animal shelters. They got connected with a group. Don't remember the name of it, unfortunately, But what they do is they go around the country and they train staff and volunteers at animal shelters how to recognize personality types in the animals. In this case, it's going to be dogs and cats, so that they can safely take shelter dogs into an appropriate enclosure so that they can have play days, so they can socialize. Because they know through behavior science that dogs who are isolated in shelter conditions for long periods of time, that's very damaging to their psyche, even for a short time, I imagine, for some of them. So they're teaching the staff and the volunteers how to safely get these dogs out so that they can be social and get exercise and have a better chance at being adopted out, because they haven't gone bonkers from being in confinement so much. So see, right there already, behavior science is having a benefit to companion animals who otherwise would spend the rest of their days really in solitary confinement.
There are universities that have programs where you can get masters and PhDs in shelter science, animal shelter. It's not animal shelter medicine, but it's that. Mm-hmm. In the shelter world, you can get an advanced degree in that. That's how much, that's how big of a problem the overpopulation is of animals, and that the shelter people, and they burn out so fast. So leaning on scientific methods to come up with solutions to the problem of overpopulation, of behavior problems, et cetera. We're starting to say, okay, let's leverage scientific data so that we can make better decisions about how to solve this bigger problem.
Yeah, it's really cool because they can take those, because it's science and it's quantifiable, it is easier and more effective to pass that information down the food chain, so to speak. So somebody who volunteers 3 times a week at the local shelter can assist the staff, because one volunteer can walk one dog every 20 minutes. Whereas learning this system, one volunteer can give that dog 20 minutes worth of much, much more value, or 5 dogs, even more valuable exercise, because walking the dog is good. But giving the dog safe, healthy playtime with 3 other dogs is even better for him.
Yeah. And how to design the shelter to encourage better socialization and emotional wellness in the animals, right? Physical wellness, emotional wellness. And this is not just for shelter animals. This is for laboratory animals. This is for zoo animals. The word enrichment is starting to take on in the equine industry as well.
Yeah.
So how do we design their spaces in order to promote their welfare, and not just their welfare, their health, their mental, their emotional, intellectual well-being.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to watch it. And as it morphs along and becomes a more mature science, the words we use to describe it as lay people might alter and change a little bit. But as long as the science is being followed, so what?
And then it's there, the part of the reason I went down this path is because in my, since we started Horse Radio Network from Stable Scoop from the very beginning, my slant on all of this was, well, what's in the best interest of the horse? How can we get people, including myself, to know better so that we can do better? And then spending time, and then starting Stall and Stable, which really is about best practices in horse keeping, which is best practices in horse care. You can't really have a best practice until you know what you're working with, until you really understand the animal that you're trying to work with. And then talking to my clients, both the professional equestrians and the private farm owners, so much of their problem is not understanding that the animals that they take care of, even, and I might even say, especially at the top level of competitive sport horses, you find a lot of misinformation about horse behavior and what's in their best interest. So, and then you go out onto social media and you're just completely bombarded with just wrong stuff. It's just wrong. It's like, no, that is wrong. You are so not right. That's wrong. But my voice is it has been so ineffective, despite the thousands and thousands of listeners I have. I needed the current data. I needed the credibility and the network that something like University of Pennsylvania can provide in order to lift my voice up over the thousands of well-intentioned but misinformed experts.
There you go. Dun, dun, dun.
I know, but also I'm a super geek and I love to learn shit.
Are you super geek? You literally are Hermione Granger.
I really am. I said to Buck last night, I should really, really write a letter to J.K. Rowling and just say
thank you.
Yeah.
If I can find a signed copy of Hogwarts: A History, I am buying it for you.
I just reread the entire series, and I haven't read any of the sequels that she wrote yet, but I just dove back into it because that's kind of like my drug of choice. Reading is my drug of choice. And I'm just finishing up the Deathly Hallows now. And I'm like, oh my God, this woman pegged me. Man, did she peg me.
Well, we are going to talk about R plus and R minus and P plus and P minus. And we're going to do that thanks to the help of today's title sponsor, which is Grazer's Nutri-Treats from Equine Balanced Support. That is a big mouthful. And that's okay because they make treats and they're a mouthful too. And if you're like the rest of us, you love giving your horses treats, whether you give it to them from your hand, toss them into their feed bucket, or drop them inside a treat dispenser so they have to investigate for themselves. The Equine Balanced Support Nutri-Treats are more than just treats, and they're a blend of carefully chosen ingredients to help support your horse's neurologic system, metabolic health, immune function, hooves, and coats, and all that from a treat. Made without high sugar or molasses-based ingredients, they are a healthier snack option. Grazer's Nutri-Treats are also metabolically safe for horses that have special dietary needs, and you can reward your horse for a job well done. At the same time, you are supporting their overall health and well-being. And guess what? We have a coupon code. Ding, 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 ding. When you check out your purchase at equibalancedsupport.com, use HRN in the coupon field, and you will get free shipping. And again, the website is Equine Balanced, post tense, ED, equinebalancedsupport.com, and pick yourself up a big old bag of Grazer's Nutri-Treats. Use HRN at checkout, and for a limited time, you will get free shipping. Ding, 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 ding. Okay, so we have plus and we have minus, and we have R and we have P. R standing for reinforcement, and P meaning punishment. Is that what those are?
Correct.
Okay, so
Correct.
Let's start. Which is it better to start with, the R, the plus or the minus, or the R or the P?
The plus is easier.
Okay, so what's the plus mean?
The plus means adding something. You're reinforcing a behavior. You're asking the horse to do something, and to say, yes, good job, you're going to add something.
Okay.
The negative means the removal of something, not bad.
Okay, so the
positive
minus.
does not mean good, and negative does not mean bad. Think of it in math terms. Positive is adding something, negative is removing something.
Got it. So we can either add something to the scenario or we can subtract something from the scenario.
You got it.
Okay, so we have reinforcement versus punishment. What does reinforcement represent?
Reinforcement means the horse does the behavior. You want to reward the behavior. So reward reinforces it. So anytime a horse does something that you want them to keep doing, like stand quietly by your side, you want to reinforce that behavior, make it happen again. And we do that by adding something pleasant, which is considered positive reinforcement. But positive doesn't mean pleasant. Positive means adding, such as a cookie.
So reinforcement is something that you do to encourage that behavior again,
continue.
happen again. Okay.
Yes.
So
right.
Versus P, which is punishment?
P is punishment. So there's, okay. So we've got positive reinforcement, which is your horse does something good, you give it a treat. So you're adding the treat. Positive punishment means your horse does something unwanted, you add a punishment, like a crop, like a whack with a crop. You are adding the punishment, i.e. the crop, in order to change the behavior.
Okay, so because this is it's so hard to get your head around it because we tend to think of good and bad, which is not really where it's at. So positive punishment happens after the behavior. For example, a horse bites you, you slap him in the neck.
Correct.
The biting was the undesired behavior. The plus is you added, and the punishment was the slap on the neck. You added a punishment.
Correct.
To try and get rid of the behavior. So that would accurately describe that scenario?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it gets much more
confusing.
nuanced. It gets much more nuanced in this, but I want to keep it as simple as possible. So the answer is yes.
And you're right. That's anybody who thinks going into this conversation that it's going to be super simple and straightforward, just like everything else that has to do with a horse. It's incredibly nuanced, and people who are really good at using any four of these, and there are those rare folks who can use all four of them effectively. It's magic. It really, and that's why it looks like magic to those of us who aren't good at it, because the incredible subtleties involving that. For example, I use the example: a horse bites you. And you're going to use positive punishment. You're adding something unpleasant. That might not be so obvious to an observer that a horse bit you and you slapped his neck. It might be the horse put his ears back and glared at you, and you, as an incredibly observant human being, notice that this is starting to happen, and he's doing it to threaten you because he wants to bite you, and you turn your body 3/4 of the way towards the horse and look him straight in the eye. And the horse says, ooh, that's what other horses do to me whenever they're going to come back. And that is doing the same thing. It's adding something unpleasant because it's that action of turning your body 3/4 towards the horse and looking him in the eye can be an unpleasant experience for the horse if he's been allowed to use that because he gets born with that instinct. That is also doing the same thing without any physical content. You're adding something unpleasant. Oh, there she is staring me in the eye. Ah! And that's why you see people can work with Mustangs and they look at them and the horse reacts.
Yeah, you're in this case, the punishment is the threat of physical aggression.
Right. Because the horse goes, ah, you're staring right at me. You must be a predator. Oh boy. And your average domestic horse learns to ignore us staring at them because we teach them to ignore it. But anywho, this is so complex. So we've got reinforcement versus punishment, right? So now if we use R minus, what define R minus?
So R minus, also known as negative reinforcement, again, doesn't mean that it's bad. It means the removal of something unpleasant. So most of us will know negative reinforcement as pressure and release. That could be pressure from the bit. It could be pressure from a leg aid. It could be pressure from body language. So I'll just use riding with a bit, right? Negative reinforcement. If you want your horses, for whatever reason, right, we're going to take up some rein contact. We're going to hold our hand steady. We're going to put a little pressure on the bit in order to communicate something that we want our horse to do. Well, as soon as the horse does it, what do our trainers tell us to do? Release the pressure, right? Release the rein aid, soften the arms. That softening or that release rewards the horse. They are reinforcing, that release reinforces the behavior of the horse carrying himself, right? So negative reinforcement means removal or release of something unpleasant, such as pressure.
So, and that's where it gets confusing for me because I always think of reinforcement as in my brain, it comes to adding things because this whole concept of the R's and the P's and the pluses and the minus, I learned about it initially through positive reinforcement. So my brain associates reinforcement with the addition of something, and it's not necessarily the case. It can be reinforcement by removing. It can be reinforcement by adding.
Right.
So we're going to take a quick break here, and we're going to hear from one of our many generous sponsors here on Horse Radio Network. And when we come back, we're going to take a couple of straightforward scenarios that all of us deal with horses, and we're going to try to break down what that scenario might play out as using each of the 4 different methods, techniques. Quadrants. There we go. Each of the 4 quadrants, and we'll see just how confused we can make each other.
As horse owners, we spend a lot of time on the road. Let US Rider help keep you covered. Our Equestrian Motor Plan offers fast, reliable, nationwide service from our highly trained roadside assistance team. 24/7 coverage for both you and your horse. Membership includes horse trailer servicing, towing, flat tire repair, even on dual wheels, battery assistance, and lockout service on any vehicle in your plan. We also have your equine companions covered with referrals for emergency vet services, farrier referrals, and emergency stabling assistance. Get peace of mind on the road for you and your horse. Join US Rider today.
And now it's time to do a couple of case studies. These are completely made up cases, but we've all experienced them. And by the way, Helena doesn't know about this. Helena was busily telling her plumber to where to put pipes in her new barn while I was writing down scenarios.
Okay. I love a surprise.
Because I'm mean that way. And we're going to preface this with the reason I want to do it this way is whether we're cognizant of it or not. In other words, we need to be cognizant of it. Anytime we're interacting with our horses, even if we don't realize we're interacting with our horses, we are using and influencing all 4 quadrants. Whether you want to or not, the horse is aware of them. He is aware of whether or not things are being added or subtracted. He is aware of whether or not unpleasant things or pleasant things are happening all around him all the time. One of those things might be that you're busily doing your R+ training like crazy, but the horse, you're doing your R+ training in an area where the horse is completely stressed out because he's worried about that barking dog tied next door. All the R+ in the world is probably not going to be very effective because you inadvertently added a negative aspect to it. You didn't even realize you were doing that.
Yeah, operative word being inadvertent. I'm like the queen of inadvertent horse training. I go bounding up to my horses like, "Hi, you guys!" I'm all touchy in their face, and they're like, "Whoa, girl, slow your roll.
Get away with your human germs." So that's the reason I want to do this, because for me, this is all about me. Help us be aware of, oh yeah, that's happening too. Now, it might be a case of, oh, that's happening too. That's a good thing. Or it might be a case of, oh, that's happening too. Maybe I need to fix it. So there we go. So we're going to start out with, which one should we do? Let's use, you have 3 horses in the field. I don't know anybody who has that. And at chow time, everybody comes to the gate and they all crowd the gate and make your life unhappy and miserable or even dangerous. So if you're using, we'll start with the easy, fun one. If you're using R+, positive reinforcement, to help horses not crowd the gate, what might that look like?
This would require taking each of the 3 horses and spending 5 minutes a day with them and teaching them using positive reinforcement to touch a target in their stall. We call it stationing. It's really, really easy to do, even if you're not experienced with positive reinforcement. So once you teach the horse that when they go in their stall, they touch a target, it could be anything. I have little marine buoys that are tied into the horses' stalls. They're white, so the horses can see them easily. They touch the target, and eventually they get their food. So by having the horse walk into their stall quietly, touch the target, that's the behavior that you want to reinforce. You reinforce it by adding food, which is pleasant. We all love food. Eventually, each horse will come to realize that what is expected of them is to walk quietly into their stall, touch the buoy, and wait. And that is the point where my horses are right now.
Yes, touch it and wait, please. Please wait.
Touch it and wait. And it really does take about 5 minutes a day, probably to teach that behavior. Maybe 2 to 3 weeks if you do 5 minutes a day every day, like 5 days a week, 4 days a week.
There we go. So next, we move on to negative reinforcement, which something unpleasant is removed. So we have to assume there's something unpleasant going on here in order to get them to be less likely to crowd the gate. So let me see if this works out. The horses crowd the gate. The negative thing is that they're crowding each other and they're feeling competitive who wants to go through the gate first. That's the negative part. So maybe if I were to put them in separate paddocks so that they don't feel the need to be competitive with each other, I've removed the negative part?
No.
Okay.
So negative reinforcement in the scenario where the horses are crowding the gate would be something like you're standing there with a stick and flag and you start waving the flag at them. Back up, back up, back up, back up, back up, back up. When they get to a place where they stand quietly and they're not crowding, you drop the flag.
Okay.
You take the pressure off.
Got it. So you're more likely to get them to repeat that behavior because the next day you go out there and you have your flag in your hand and you end up waving it a little less. They're going, oh yeah, I get this. As soon as I move away from the flag and stand still, I'm allowed to come in. Okay.
Yes. There's a caveat to that. Positive reinforcement has been shown to have longer term staying power than negative reinforcement because it activates a completely different part of the horse's brain and a different recipe of chemicals. So when you use positive reinforcement, you're less likely, once the horse learns what you want, you're less likely to have to repeat that training. When you use negative reinforcement, you typically have to keep teaching that behavior. You have to keep reinforcing it for it to stay in the horse's long-term memory because there are a different set of chemicals that are activated in the horse's brain when you use negative reinforcement. So long-term memory, short-term memory, that's part of the science that we're going to talk about in animal welfare science with this stuff.
All right. So that same scenario, horses are crowding the gate at chow time, and we're going to use positive. And sometimes it's referred to as pressure, and sometimes it's referred to as punishment. Don't know which one's correct, but we're using positive pressure, which is.
I have not actually heard the term positive pressure used when it comes to these 4 quadrants. I'm not sure where that phrase was coined, but positive punishment would be if you took that stick, that horseman, the stick and flag, and you hit the horse with it, even if you tap them lightly.
Okay, now I'm getting my head around a little bit. And positive punishment occurs after the behavior.
Correct.
So that's helping me clear things up. So you're right. You add something because it's positive. It's punishment because it's unpleasant. Okay, so that's how that would work. Probably most of us can agree that that's not going to be a good idea. And then we have negative punishment.
I want to go backward to positive punishment for a minute. Well, just the words positive punishment, adding something unpleasant or some kind of punishment to our horse is like, what? I don't want to do that. I use it. When my horse hasn't been trained to do something, I'm in a pinch. I get, or I'm usually when I'm in a pinch. And it could be something like my horse sticking her nose in the feed bin when I'm setting something up, or getting too close to a place that could be dangerous for her or me. I might bop her on the nose, right? The nose bop. The nose bop is positive punishment.
That's true. You're right.
Nobody likes to be bopped on the nose, honestly.
You're right. Yeah.
Right.
That is interesting.
Any of these things, except the positive reinforcement where you're, click and feed. The other three quadrants can become very dangerous and cruel, but they are effective in their own ways. So,
well, and again, that's why we have to be cognizant of what we're doing. Because again, sometimes we do or don't realize what we're doing. So negative punishment. I'm doing my best to under things. Now, negative punishment means that we are going to remove something they like.
Yeah, and so this is the most.
This one I might have a handle on.
Oh, that's funny.
At least we do this in the barn. We do this in the barn a lot. You go out at 7 o'clock in the morning. You're gonna bring the horses in for breakfast, and they're all crying at the gate and acting like jerks. So you just leave. Don't feed them. Come back an hour later. Oh, they run up the gate and act stupid. Oh, leave. You come back an hour later. Huh? What? Okay, now go out and catch them and bring them in. You've removed what is pleasant to them, which is breakfast. Now, I don't know if that's going to be strictly speaking a negative punishment because we've removed something they wanted, but it's effective.
So it is effective. Removing something that is pleasant to them. So the classic example of negative punishment would be two horses out in a paddock together, and you remove a buddy, right? Let's say they're playing, and one is playing too rough, and you're like, oh, geez, I got to separate them. You take the buddy away. That is punishing because socialization to horses is as essential to their well-being as air and water and food. So taking their paddock buddy away is considered negative punishment. Withholding food, yep, that could be negative punishment. I just call it frustration. So, but again, in that scenario, if we want a horse to learn what we want them to do, how they should behave, the quadrants, the methods that we use that activate the good hormones, what we call the seeking system, the happy side of their brain, they are more likely to hold on to those lessons, to actually learn, than when we use negative punishment, positive punishment, and negative reinforcement.
Yeah. Trying to think of another one. Something that we see a lot is you're riding in the arena, and every time you go to the gate, the horse pops his shoulder out and drifts that way, or he slows down, or he gets to the other end and starts heading back towards the gate, and he gets quicker. So we'll do them in the same order again. What might positive reinforcement look like to get started on helping the horse learn that that's not a desired, that keeping it, because we need to think this is positive. Help the horse understand that keeping the same pace is the desired behavior.
Okay. So you have to make the desired behavior more delicious, more fun, more rewarding than
like a Nutri-Grazer's treat.
Right. Like going to the gate. Why do they go to the gate? Because they want their friends. Okay. So, or they want relief from the work that they're in. So positive reinforcement means you're going to give the horse something that is so pleasant anywhere except the gate. So you're going to make them seek the far corner of the arena. Now, we're not talking about the shoulder bulging, because now we're getting into the athletic development and that kind of thing with the horse. There are ways to use the 4 quadrants with that, but in just the case of the horse's mental and emotional state where they want to go to the gate because they want to go be with their friends, or they want to stop working, make their continued work, maintaining pace. You can, for example, I'll give you an example. Brody, his favorite things to do are sleep and eat. So when we're riding, want a little more forward from him, instead of, classically what we're going to do is we're going to put our leg on, right, and wait for them to go forward, which is negative reinforcement. You put your leg on, nobody likes to really be squeezed or goosed. So the minute they go forward, you take your leg off, you release the pressure. Positive reinforcement to keep that forward momentum, you may have heard this before, is sometimes, it's just really not that easy to explain. We want to allow our horses to go forward, right? You've heard that expression. Mm-hmm. Allow your horse to go forward? No?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So you allow your horse to go forward. And a lot of times we kind of close up our seat, we clamp, we're really preventing them from going forward. Okay, so you figure out whatever you need to do with your body, allow your horse to go forward. So I do that with Brody, and he's like, oh, okay, thank you. I can pick up the trot a little bit. The minute he goes forward, I'm going to click, and I'm going to reach forward, and I'm going to feed him a treat. He goes, oh, every time I go forward, I get a cookie. So now the other thing is I can put my leg on tap, tap, which is a cue, versus put your leg on and squeeze and then release the squeeze. That's negative reinforcement. The negative is you're removing the unpleasant feeling of the squeeze. When the horse goes forward, you remove that. You're reinforcing the behavior of going forward. The positive reinforcement version of that is you use your leg or a cluck or some other aid, some cue that says, please go forward. Or you're opening up your hips, please go forward. When he responds with the behavior that you want, which is forward, you click to mark that behavior. This is where the clicker becomes helpful. You click to mark that behavior. The minute that horse says forward, you mark it, and then you feed. So the mark is what we call a bridge signal. And it just helps the horse understand, oh, I just did something good. Because at that point, you've already established the value of the click by pairing the click with the food.
There you go. And again, the subtlety of making this effective is going through, just like anything else with training horses, dogs, husbands, to go through the steps to get to that point so that your horse understands that the clicker is a marker, not that the clicker doesn't mean stop and get a cookie. Because I think that's where a lot of people fall off and they get frustrated when they're using R+, is they are unable to bridge that gap so that the horse doesn't hear a click and go, oh, where's the cookie? He hears the click and goes, oh, whatever I just did, I got to do again. There's a distinct difference, and it's very important.
And it doesn't always have to be a click and food. The click, the reason we call it a bridge signal is it simply bridges the time span between your cue, your ask, and the horse's and the reward.
Right. So that, obviously, if you're trotting past the gate, you can't stop and have a cookie. That's quite the opposite of what you want to happen. But the horse hears the click when he continues to trot forward 3 steps past that gate. He hears the click, and he knows that whatever I just did in that very second is desirable.
And I wouldn't even click anywhere near the gate. I would click after the gate.
So he gets past the gate. I get to this point. That's good. See, that's why you're better than I am.
Right. And if you're riding a thoroughbred, your horse is going to figure this out 12 strides before the gate. And she will speed up. Right.
Yes, right.
Which actually leads me to probably the most important part about this particular quadrant of training, which is you eventually get rid of the click and the food. We call it fading it out. Right. So a lot of people are like, oh, I can't ride with the clicker all the time. Or every time I want my horse to do something under saddle, I have to click and then stop and then lean over and feed him. And that's just a pain in the butt. At first, maybe that's how it goes. But it's very short order before you can fade those things out. And, just the gentlest tap of a leg or a voice aid or even a very subtle shift of your balance becomes the aid. And then they're thinking, well, she's going to click. And they don't even consciously think of this. You're creating neural pathways in the horse's brain that simply associate your aid with good feelings.
Right.
And
she gave me a tap with her heel, and that got and I moved forward, and that got repeated 452 times. But now when she feels that tap with it's like, something's good going to happen. I'm going to go, and something's good's going to happen. Yeah.
So Clarabelle, she's like, oh, let's go. We're going. I was a racehorse. We got to go. The most effective tool that I had for getting her to halt square from anywhere, doing anything, was using a clicker. And the only aid that I used is what most natural horsemanship, people like Mary Kitzmiller and all those really great riders, not me, it's the tiniest rotation of your pelvis that says, we're stopping now, right? Sitting back just a teeny bit deeper in your saddle, I would do that and she would feel it. So even if she just acknowledged the shift in my balance, I would click, stop everything, give her a cookie. You repeat it. 5 repetitions. She's like, I got this, girl. You want me to stop and you want me to stop square. Thank you.
She is an overachiever. I've seen you do Liberty work with her, and it's just makes me mad.
It's the thing about any of these quadrants is it's really powerful. So positive reinforcement, which a lot of people struggle with. Nobody wants to use food with their horses. Food is, in animal behavior science, a primary reinforcer because everybody needs it. And if you listen to Shauna Karish's Equine Clicker podcast, she talks about this all the time. So it's very easy to mess it up. It's very easy to reward a behavior you didn't mean to reward.
I do that all the time.
Yeah, I do too. I still do it. I'm like, damn, I clicked at the wrong time, So, and this is something that I say all the time. Taking food from a training tool, most people think of food as a treat. A treat is a social gesture that we share with our horses. Here you go. Good boy. Thank you. I love you for doing a good job.
And Nutri-Grazers are healthy too. So it's a healthy social gesture. You're having a salad with your horse, people.
It's a healthy social gesture, but you're not training them to do anything. Whatever the horse did in the 3 seconds before you gave them that treat because you love them, you've just reinforced that specific
horse paws
behavior.
On the cross ties. Look out.
Mm-hmm. Even though you think you're rewarding the behavior he did a minute ago. Mm-mm.
Right.
So if we stop thinking about treats and food in the social way and start thinking of it as a tool specifically connected to a behavior, then we understand how powerful it is. And
it's a tool, just like your reins and your seat and your balance and your heels.
And then you become more careful with it.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it too, because you do have to be careful with it if you intend to ever use it as a genuine training tool. And if you intend to only use it as a social interaction with your horse, you need to be just as careful so that you don't inadvertently reinforce undesirable behaviors, perhaps like pawing on the cross ties. So if we're going to use positive punishment, which is adding an undesirable consequence after the behavior, in this case, and you see this one very commonly with struggling novice riders or less experienced trainers on green horses, they get to the gate, the horse slows down and nearly stops, and they start kicking.
Or they hit him with a crop.
Or hit them with a crop or whatever. So the least effective of the lot.
Correct.
In my experience, because taught a lot of green riders, and waiting until after the behavior and then adding punishment to it is the least effective. You're much better to circumvent and use one of the other methods. Or we're going to use, wrong button, negative punishment, which is remove something desirable. So he wants to go to the gate, and we need to remove. That's the one. If we're going to use negative punishment, you need to have 2 different gates on your arena. The one he comes in and the one he goes out. The one he comes in is the one he wants to stop at all the time because he's also going out of that one. Well, he's never allowed to leave the arena using that gate. We have removed that. And an alternate method to that, because many of us don't have the ability to have two different gates in our working area for our horses. And I used this with Nigel, and doggone was it effective. We're going to leave. We're going to go out the gate. And he was one of those that just tended to drift that way. It wasn't real radical. And we'd get to the gate and we'd have to stop and take a breather break with our butt to the gate. So we weren't looking at it because that was the desire. He wanted to look at that gate because he wants to go out that gate. And then we had to back out the gate because he wants to go towards the gate. He wants to move forward towards the barn. Well, if you're backing up, you can't. You're actually, from his point of view, he's still going away from the barn. And it was really quite effective. It's a little bit convoluted from the point of view of negative punishment, but since I couldn't have two gates, it worked really well.
So you backed him out.
Yep. And he backed out of the gate. And
so
I had to keep doing it until he got to the point where he would back out the gate and then he would want to zip around and go forward towards the barn. Oh, nope. We keep backing up. And I would back 3 steps and stand still. If he wanted to try and turn around to go forward towards the barn, nope. Back up 3 more steps and stand still.
But he eventually was able to turn around and face the direction that he wanted to go in.
If he did it in a mannerly fashion, when I said, okay, let's turn around now. But if we would turn around and he would race off to the barn, nope. Turn around. Stand there.
That is negative reinforcement. That is negative reinforcement. So by having him back out of the spot that made him balky or uncomfortable, you introduced a pressure. It was an emotional pressure and a physical one because it's harder for a horse to walk backwards than it is to walk forwards, right? So you're backing him up through the place where he really wants to go forward. And only when he did so in a mannerly way did you allow him to then turn around and face the direction that he wanted to go. So you removed the pressure, the physical pressure of having to walk backwards, and you removed the emotional pressure of you can't see your friends, you can't see where you want to go until you respond, until you exhibit a behavior I want, which is calm, relaxed, backward walking. And when you do that, I allow you now to see your friends or see where you want to go. Negative punishment in this scenario would be something more like your horse is trotting around an arena and he's uncomfortable or he wants to slow down at the gate and you introduce another horse. Let's say he's in the arena by himself and you bring another horse in.
So you add something more desirable than the gate.
Oh, shoot. Wait a minute. No. Oh, you got me all confused. Damn it.
See?
Damn it. No, sorry. Removing something pleasant would be taking the horse away. But it really wouldn't solve
He wants to be at the gate.
See,
by adding a different gate, we've removed the desire to be at that gate.
You can't use negative punishment in this scenario.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't work. It was so the reason this is getting a little bit complicated is because you first have to understand the origin of the horse's behavior. Why do they want to go to the gate? And then that will help you decide which of the 4 quadrants is the best to overcome that behavior.
Does he want to go to the gate because he wants to be with his friends? Does he want to go to the gate because he associates that with you getting off and no more work? So they're different,
Horse behavior, they're unwanted behaviors, usually come down to one of three things. The horse is afraid, the horse is in pain or is physically uncomfortable, or the horse is confused. He does not know what you want or doesn't understand the expectation. Typically, it's one of those 3 things. So in the case of the horse wanting to go to the gate, it could be that he has associated the gate with relief from work. So he may be uncomfortable, saddle fit, lameness, muscle sore.
Or he just doesn't like to work.
Or he just doesn't like to work.
He just doesn't like, some horses they want to be putsy. I can understand that.
I used to think that. I'm not I'll tell you at the end of my master's program how I feel about it because I thought so too. And that may be true, but I'm starting to feel and sense things that maybe that I can't go there right now. But so when the horse gets to that gate, it's what is it? Is it does he just not want to work? You know, he's physically comfortable. He's old. Like Susie's a middle-aged mom like me. She's like, ugh, my back is sore. I got my period. I don't want to deal. Is it because they do not feel secure? They don't have adequate leadership in their rider, or are they the only horse in the arena? So is there an insecurity? Are they afraid of being alone? And then what did I say? The third was, it was fear or confusion. A horse and anything in our universe is going to take the path of least resistance. But typically a working animal is going to take the path of least resistance. So if your horse associates the gate with the end of work, they're like, oh, okay, we're done. It's a vacation time. I'm off the clock. And they don't know that you want them to pick up the pace or trot on forward past that gate, then you have to figure out how to make your aid more clear. And you can do that with a stick. That's very clear. You slow down, I smack you with the crop. Ooh, ouch, I go forward. That's clear, but it's not fair and it's not kind. There are clearer ways to say, please continue the pace that you're going out past this door. And science has shown that positive reinforcement is the more effective and longer lasting of those two methods. So you just have to be clear with your aids.
There we go. You have to be clear and fair. And what we think is clear isn't always clear. Sometimes we think we're being clear. And if you put a set of eyes on the ground, or maybe a different set of eyes on the ground, those eyes go, I don't think you're being as clear as you think you are. A little self-examination is always good. It's humbling, but hello, 99.9999% of the times, oh, I wasn't doing what I thought I was doing. Or I was doing way more things than I thought I was doing. That's my favorite. Yeah. Way more things than I thought I was doing. Well, this has been a really fascinating discussion on.
Oh, good. I don't have a lot of experience explaining it.
Well, so here we go. And we're going to wrap it up with one final thing. The other day you posted on your Facebook page a picture of a dog sleeping on your porch.
Yes.
Explain.
That is Jax. He belongs to the foreman, one of the subcontractors who's framing out my barn. And the fellow, we didn't have a lot of, so some of the sub teams are Mexican and I don't speak Spanish. I can count to 10. That's about it. So I try my best to let these guys know that I really appreciate their work, especially when it's hot and they're doing such a good job. And so I'm nice, right? I throw out some bottles of water from time to time. So one day he shows up and he gets out of his truck and he says, he's trying to say like, is it okay for my dog? And I look at this dog and it's like 100-pound pit bull of some sort. And I said, sure. Is he friendly? You know, we were able to say that he was like very friendly. Well, this dog gets out of the truck and is the biggest love. He was so good and he was so well trained and just a peach. So I'm like, I don't have a dog. Come over here, keep me company. And so I did a little positive reinforcement training with him. And because I said, is it okay? And the guy was like, yeah, I don't know this. So I showed him the clicker and I don't even know what I used, something like cat food or something, and that dog followed me around everywhere. The guy was just like in tears. He said, you have no idea. He's like, I've shown up on certain job sites with my dog and people are like, get that dog off my property, get it away from me. And I said, yeah, I know the breed has a bad reputation, but show me that I'm safe. And so that was Jax. Yeah. He hung out on the porch with me and the guys worked and we did some tricks. He does this cute little trick. Javier calls it do the penguin, and he sits up on his hind legs and he swims with his paws.
Oh my gosh.
And he's round.
That's a feat for a dog that big.
Buck says that dog has not missed a meal in years. So when he sits up on his hind end and he does the penguin, you're like, let me write you a check. How much do you need? What do you want? You want your puppies to go to college? What? Yeah. Here's my money. Here's everything.
Oh, that's awesome. So understanding those different quadrants, and it's not as clear as we would like it to be. Over on Stall and Stable Facebook page, Helena is going to repost the really nice infographic she did of the 4 quadrants that we're talking about all day today, that it helps to make it clear, and take a screenshot of it and carry it around with you. So when you're in the barn doing stuff with your dogs or your horses and you go, well, where am I? Just because it's good to know, you can pop that up.
You can. And I'll do I'm looking at the graphic right now, and I'll do the quick audio recap because you and I took this to all sorts of complicated places. Thank you, Jennifer. Positive reinforcement is the addition of something pleasant. You add something pleasant, like a cookie. Negative reinforcement is the removal of something unpleasant, such as pressure. Positive punishment is when you add something unpleasant, like the thwack of a crop. And negative punishment is when you remove something pleasant that the horse is enjoying.
But yes, she's gonna post that over on Stall and Stable. So if you haven't headed over to Stall and Stable and said hi and followed her page, do that. It's always fun and informative and incredibly geeky. Yeah, and that's the way we go. So for folks who want to appropriately stalk you online, have you help them with getting their business running more efficiently or effectively, where can they find you?
Stallandstable.com. We are, as always, going through an evolution there. It is barn, business, and will be soon behavior. So Mr. Buck Harris has left his official position as vice president at Community Investment Corporation up north, and he has recently accepted a position on the faculty of University of South Carolina here in Aiken. He'll be teaching business finance. So he's actually going to be taking a lot of the business coaching sessions that we do over at Stall and Stable. So if you run a boarding business, you're an equestrian professional, you want to start a business, he will be the one who helps you get things going. I will provide, however, the expertise on the farm design, barn design, layout, all of that, anything that has to do with setting up the horse's environment so that it is congruous, or is that a word? So that it works with their natural tendencies and needs. And then as I get through this program with Penn Veterinary School, I will be focusing a lot more on behavior, because the end goal is to become a behaviorist where I can help people better understand their horses.
There we go. Dun, da, da.
Stallandstable.com. All of it will be there.
It's all in one place. Thank you very much. And as usual, Horses in the Morning, we'll be back again tomorrow with more fun and games. Ta!